realise that there's a lot of depression. It's almost like you can see there's a depression that's broken spirits, and it's, and in the creative world, I always find it really emotionally damaging to those people who they seem to be broken people, but in the industry that they can find they can't say that they have these issues, or they have to have a lifestyle like, I can't get on a train, I have to be seen to not wear the same thing twice. So how do you assess that whole situation, and how can artists kind of like get themselves to be more liberated mentally from that?
This is a very good question. It's very sad because all these people who basically don't give a fuck about the artist, the label, the radio, all of the brands that want to hatch themselves onto you when you're popular, the entire industry really is not set up to serve the artist. And when you look at the pressures artists are put under, particularly artists on major labels, while you're the hot guy, it's like I used to kick ball, right? When I used to play football, if you're playing well, the coach is on you, the youth development officer's on you, everyone loves you, you're the next big thing, you can say whatever you want, you can wear what you want to training, you can have dreadlocks or braids. The moment you're not playing well, you better shave your hair, you better do your tie up proper, you better be disciplined, because you're not the guy of the moment. Well, music is quite like that. And unfortunately, the materialism in hip hop, particularly, or the materialism in mainstream hip hop, has created a culture where young men, particularly young black men, particularly, let's be real, are being made to feel by other black men, but by the media that supports them, that they're less if they don't have more than not necessarily any more than anyone else. But I'm looking at what I see. Right, oh, you're broke, you're this, you're that. Well, who are they talking to? They're clearly not talking to the old rich white men that own record labels. And so we have a whole set of aspirations that are unrealistic. And actually, when you think about it, are kind of backwards. If poor people are idiots, then our parents are idiots if we grew up poor. Yeah, so all these expectations feed into artists, I think, often pursuing stuff that they necessarily don't really want. They probably ain't really that shallow as a person. And then once you attain a certain amount of wealth, if you do something that's against your spirit to get that wealth, you're never happy. You think it will be enough because you wanted a Lambo or this or a Bentley or that. And that's where the drugs start to come in. Man start taking drugs and all them thing there, and they can't focus. And if you understand nutrition, I've studied a little bit of nutrition, if your liver's fucked, you're going to be depressed. A lot of people don't understand, sometimes depression is just toxification of the liver and the kidneys, but the liver particularly, organs have relationships to emotion. That's why when you drink and you mess up your liver, you get emotional. It's not rocket science, right? You detoxify these things and flush the body and your emotions become a bit clearer. But if you're in an environment where drugs are normal, remember in our background, I can't be taking coke in our background. This is what makes me laugh about the rumour of the idea of black people and drugs being so intimately connected. You can smoke weed. And I'm not saying no one takes coke in the ends, of course they do. But man will be like, rah, bruv, you're a cokehead. Like, it's shameful. You can't come out and admit you take cocaine or you take crack or heroin in a black community, because those things are scorned upon. But people are struggling with those problems. And because hip hop is so egotistical, and if you set yourself out in that way, to come out and say, oh, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm addicted to drugs, I feel inadequate, I feel like I don't feel neat in my spirit, my label's putting pressure on me, this is happening, that's happening. All of those things are hard things to say, and it takes a lot of humility to say them. And if you build a persona that is based on all the opposite of that, are people going to still respect you and love you afterwards? And so that's why I suppose I feel very fortunate, actually, for a number of reasons, and lots of things that I've never talked about. My early career when I was on the radio, and then my second album and all of that, didn't blow in a particular direction. And actually I look back, and a lot of it was my own fault, actually, for other things that were going on behind the scenes. But I look back and I'm like, I feel quite grateful for that, because I feel like if you put me in a certain position at 21, 22 years old, who knows if I'd have been mentally capable of dealing with that, especially because I went to the MTV Awards when I was 17 years old in Barcelona. I went to Puff Daddy's after party as a 17-year-old, obviously because of what my sister was doing. So I was exposed to that world before I was in it, and knew even then, this ain't for me. I went to Nelson Mandela's house when I was 19. Do you know what I mean? When she performed, I don't talk about this stuff, but this is what happened. She performed at the 46664 concert, the concert that he does for his AIDS charity in South Africa. Beyonce was there, Oprah was there, Bono was there. I met all these people. I was a youth man. And I just knew even then, this world isn't for me. I don't belong necessarily in this room. Not because I'm any better than anyone in the room, I'm not, but just because I started to understand even then the pressures that were put on artists to conform and to be a certain way. And my sister was one of the few artists that was very lucky who just didn't give a shit. the background we was from, she was just like, I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to call Tony Blair the devil's chaplain. And I don't really give a damn. I'm going to talk at the Iraq War March. And I'm just going to do me. I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve and do my thing. And she did that in that period. But I had a tremendous amount of respect for that. So even my view into the industry, I was like, her not giving a shit made her quite unique. And even though I was never on a major label, I felt like I wanted to keep that energy of just not giving a shit and doing my own thing. And I feel like that's what's actually kept me sane. If you're constantly chasing other people's approval, you become a prisoner to their approval. That's not that we don't want to be popular and we don't want people to like our music, but I'm not going to do anything that's against my spirit to succeed. I've been offered big money to do foolishness bare times, or stuff that I consider foolish, to do adverts for this or for that, or just things that I don't agree with. It's not enough money that I can change loads of people's lives. I'm not going to lie to you. If someone said to me, here's 10 mil, the amount of schools I could build and things I would like to think I would do with that kind of money, I'd seriously have to think about it. But if it's 20 grand, 50 grand here and there, that adds up over a period of time, but it's not enough money for, it's personal comfort money to a degree. It's not enough money for me to say, rah, this is really worth people thinking I'm a bit of a plum. Whereas a certain amount of money might be because of what I could do with it, not because I want to quote unquote sell out. And so I think all of those things are really important. And mental health is something that we don't talk about enough.
In the black community as well.
In the black community, yeah. Well, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why? Either genetically, black people are just more crazy, you know, and we can go over.
There are some people.
There's some people who believe that.
Yeah.
Then if we're going to go with that eugenics-based genetic argument, that would have to be true of every black country in the world. What are the mental health statistics for, I don't know, Botswana or Namibia or African Americans in Atlanta, where most of them are middle class? You know, what are the mental health statistics there? Where I just come back from last week. Obviously, we know black people are not genetically more mental than anyone else. So again, it's not about blame. This is wherever, when you talk about race, even some black people say this foolishness to me, but you can't blame racism. Brethren, if you eat bare McDonald's and you get sick, it's because you're eating McDonald's. That's not an excuse. No one's disputing it's your responsibility to stop eating McDonald's and drinking 2 pints of vodka on the weekend. But if I'm a doctor, I've got to tell you why you're sick, right? And it's the same if a community has a sickness. If poor communities, take colour even out of the equation, in poorer communities, drug addiction affects them worse. Why? Not because poor people take any more drugs than rich people. Because when you're poor and you can't afford drugs, you can't afford your kit, you get stressed, you beat maybe your wife, your children, bad crap happens because everything that was already wrong with you emotionally is made much worse by the fact that you're poor. That you maybe don't have access to education, that you don't have the economic privilege to go rehab and all them kind of things there. And so the drug addiction becomes much more of a problem in poorer communities. Does that make sense? That's not blaming poverty, it's recognising the role that poverty plays. And it's the same with race. So if black communities are more depressed than other communities, we have to look at why. But whenever this is what's funny about this country, you can have racially specific policing, which we've had, right? We've tried it. They've got rid of it now. It no longer is just for black on black violence, right? You can have racially specific media. Black kid does this, black kid does that. Even when Mark Duggan, whose mum's white, was shot, it was black man is shot, right? No problem, cool. But the moment you try and provide a racially specific solution, say, okay, well, if black kids are more depressed and white schools have found, or the major white-run institutions clearly have proved incapable or unwilling to deal with it, someone proposes African-centered education for young black children to deal with some of these mental health issues. Everyone says, reverse racism, you can't do that. But you can have racially specific policing. We can know that there's racial disparities at every level. Hey, lights. At every level of the criminal justice system. But if you propose a racially specific solution, you're a madman.